PreO is a combination of prebiotic, probiotic product, kind of what we call a symbiotic, if you will. This is a kind of a synergistic combination of these two ingredients. So the main benefit to that is that you're providing things that both kind of feed the gut as well as, in a sense, kind of fortify it, is the way to put it. And then the other kind of key thing to keep in mind, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later on, is the microbeadlet delivery that we use in this product. And the beadlets contain only the probiotic portion for the product. And that's important for a number of reasons, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So obviously what we're doing is talking about your microbiome. The microbiome is the bacteria, well, let me go a little bit larger than that. So microbiome is just a collection of bacteria living in an organized group, kind of in a select environment. On the human body, or in the human body, you have several microbiomes. The one we're talking about today is your intestinal microbiome, and it's probably the most well-researched and the most diverse microbiome that the human body has. But you have a separate microbiome that grows on your skin, and you have a microbiome that's unique to genitals. You have one that's kind of in your eyes. You know, all these different places where you have collection of friendly bacteria that live in kind of a symbiotic relationship with us. And the intestinal microbiome in particular is unique in that it has kind of very wide-reaching impacts on health. This is still kind of a relatively new area of research. You probably go back a couple decades, maybe 30 years, to where the first kind of microbiome research started, but it's really taken off within the last 15 or so, and you're seeing a lot of publications come out, and they've been able to show that the microbiome literally touches every aspect of health. Some of the more interesting stuff that's come out of this is you'll see there are studies showing that a healthy microbiome has impacts on your mood. There are disturbances in the microbiome in people that have depression. There are things in the microbiome associated with weight loss and weight gain. And you have it the wrong mix in there, and you're more likely to put on pounds, or you may have a hard time gaining weight if you have the wrong set in there as well. And then it even goes as far as they found that in doing what they call fecal transplants, where they essentially kill off everything in your gut and then give you pills that reseed the gut with someone else's healthy microbiome. They've even found in doing things like that that people that have lost their hair are starting to regrow the hair on the top of their head. So things that you would not typically associate with goings on inside your gut can impact just about every aspect of your health. And when we talk about the PreO product, it really is talking about this microbiome and maintaining the health of that microbiome so that in turn you're maintaining the health of your body. So in the simplest sense, the microbiome is there as gastrointestinal functions, right? So digestion and absorption of nutrients. These bacteria do play a role in that as well. They help break down some of the foods, and in fact, some of your vitamins are actually manufactured by these bacteria. We kind of already talked about the mood and stress one, and the immune system is one that bears a little bit more attention to it. And obviously with 4Life, we're focused on the immune system, but your microbiome is actually a section or a portion of your immune system in a sense, in that it is literally that first line of defense. A healthy microbiome helps prevent things from growing in your gut that you don't want growing there. Some of those harmful bacteria and other things. Now, I kind of like to use the analogy when we talk about the microbiome of a healthy lawn. Now, you have grass that's growing outside your home or whatever, and as long as you water it and feed it properly, it's green and healthy. If things start to go bad with it, you'll start to see some weeds crop up growing inside it. And if your grass isn't there at all, then you're just totally covered in weeds. It's similar with the microbiome. The healthier one you have, the fewer places there are for bad bacteria to get a foothold and therefore to grow and cause any kind of illness or issues with your health. And so keeping a healthy mix is key to your immune system as well as it is to other aspects of your health. Now, there are literally hundreds of different types of bacteria growing in your gut. They haven't been able to fully identify all of them yet. Probably about 10 years ago, there was a group that made an attempt at it. They got up to 500 different species and they gave up. It was just too much of a task for them to take on. And even now, you have companies that will analyze your microbiome and tell you what kind of mix of bacteria you have growing within you. But for the most part, they don't get much more detailed than the genus level in identifying these bacteria. They will identify a few species, but here you're talking maybe a couple dozen species, and for the most part, you're looking at the genus or family level. So 2 or 3 levels removed from actual bugs in your gut and being able to specifically identify each individual one. Now, as a part of that, and probably not news to most people, the lactobacillus and the bifidobacterium are 2 genera, 2 genuses of bacteria that are very prevalent in a healthy gut. More so for the bifidobacterium. There are many of those species that are associated with a healthy microbiome and a healthy gut. Lactobacilli, there are a few as well, though not quite as many as in the bifidobacterium. And these are just 2 of hundreds of types there. And so when you look at what's healthy for your gut, you want to make sure that these 2 are represented, and in some cases a few others may also be helpful in that. But keep in mind, we're talking about a very small subset of all the hundreds of different bacteria that live in some kind of symbiosis inside your gut. So for our product, it is what we call that symbiotic product. So you're combining the probiotics, which are these friendly bacteria, the good ones that you want growing in your gut, and prebiotics. They are the food that these probiotics eat. And as we get in here, we'll kind of talk about the different foods. And here, I kind of like to compare it to you. I mean, you have your favorite food. Your mom makes that meal for you, and as soon as you walk in the house and you can smell it, you automatically start salivating. You're excited. It kind of just changes the whole mood of things because you know you're going to get to eat something that you really enjoy. The same thing goes for the bugs in your gut. They have a preferred food, and when that is present, they grow quickly, they divide, and they maintain the health there. Now, if you're feeding them those foods, then those are the bacteria that are going to grow. If you're feeding it its least favorite food, it's not going to do much with it. It's not going to grow. Other bacteria, probably ones you don't want, may grow. And so this is where your diet really plays a key role in the health of your microbiome and why we put the prebiotics in this product. And of course, you have the trifactor in here for its immune support benefits, but it also has some other benefits in terms of the health of these bacteria, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So again, we kind of talked about the number of different strains in the gut and how important it is to have those bifidobacterium and lactobacilli. And I kind of talked initially about the beadlets. And we'll talk a little bit more detail about what they're made up of here in a minute, but the beadlet delivery ensures that those probiotics make it all the way into the gut. So while we're talking about probiotics, and this is one of the things that I've added in here, this is off the label of the product, and I put it here just to kind of highlight a couple key things when we're talking about probiotics. First, kind of as I already mentioned, because you have hundreds of different bacteria living in your gut, a good probiotic product is going to have several different bacteria in it. Any product that is a single bacteria is going to be less effective than one that has several bacteria in it. Again, you have hundreds of different types in there. You want to try and cover as much as you can. Now, most of the ones that are in there, we don't know what they're doing and what role they play in your health. And so you kind of have to be a little bit judicious in what you pick. And so when we did this, we looked through and tried to find the 5 bacteria that had the most research published on them. And in particular, we were looking for the bacteria that had a lot of immune-focused research on them. Now, obviously, that's an interest for life, and so we wanted to kind of maintain that as we looked at this product. Now, the key point that I also want to point out here, and I don't know what the market is like in India in terms of probiotics, but you'll notice as we've listed them here at the end of each of these bacteria, so the top one there, Bifidobacterium longum, you'll see that there's those parentheses and you have the BB536. Now that is a strain designation. So Bifidobacterium longum is a species of bacteria, and the BB536 is a specific strain of that species. To kind of help you understand that, I'd like to use a comparison about apples. Right? If someone were to walk up behind you and offer you an apple, you can't see it. Do you know what you're going to get? Right? It could be anything from a very sweet one to a very sour apple. It could be red, it could be green, it could be yellow. You don't really know. You know roughly the shape, you know kind of what it might taste like, and you have an idea of what it is, but you really don't know what you're getting. And that's the same way it is with probiotics. To just say that you're getting a Bifidobacterium longum or a Lactobacillus acidophilus, you have a general idea of what that is and what benefits it might have, but you're not really sure. That's why you have to go down to the strain level when you're talking about probiotics. And that's what those numbers and letters are at the end of each of those names. So if you were to go to something like PubMed and look up published research and you were to type in BB536, you're going to see dozens of studies that come up about that particular strain of bacteria. You will know specifically that that bacteria is capable of doing these dozen or so things, whatever it is that's been studied. And you're guaranteed that you'll have that activity in the product. Now, if you just look up Bifidobacterium longum, you're going to get hundreds of studies, and they're going to go all over the place. Some showing a benefit, some showing no benefit, some looking in this area, some saying it does this, some saying it does the opposite. The problem you have is if they haven't identified the strain, you really don't know which one is doing what or if it's doing anything at all. And so if you go onto the marketplace and you see a probiotic product that just lists the genus and the species, don't waste your time with it. Put it back on the shelf and move on, because you don't really know what you're getting. And so that's why we went through that extra time to look through the research and say, all right, which strains have the best research? Which ones are the most effective ones that we can put in the product? And so here we've picked the 5, and in fact that NCFM strain, the acidophilus one at the bottom, that is the single most researched probiotic currently available in the marketplace. There are 100 or so studies just on that particular strain. And so again, the whole point in that is you've got 5 strains, so you've got a variety of bacteria, Bifidobacterium and Lactobacilli, that are all in the same product, and each one of these has several studies that document its benefits in the health of the gut and the health of your microbiome. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And a key component in any probiotic is to make sure that it's identified down to the strain level. So on the prebiotic side of it, and so for me personally, the prebiotic component of this product I think is what's the best part of the product. So again, going back to that lawn analogy, if your lawn is struggling, there's a couple things you can do to it. You can throw more seed on that lawn and hope that it's going to sprout new grass and it's going to grow better. Or you can fertilize it and water it and feed what you have and then hope that that's going to strengthen and grow what's already there. The prebiotics are that portion of it. They are the food, the water, the things that support the growth of your bacteria. So not only do the prebiotics in this product help the probiotics take hold and grow within your gut, but they're also feeding the healthy, friendly bacteria that are already there. So we're kind of trying to go about it both ways. We're throwing a little bit of seed out there, and then we're throwing out the food and stuff to kind of help all of it grow better and stronger. And you'll notice that there's some similarities here. You have galacto-oligosaccharides, xylo-oligosaccharides, and fructo-oligosaccharides. All of these are oligosaccharides. And what that really means is these are really small starches. So simply, it's chains of sugar molecules, but they're relatively short. They're not the long ones that you would see in, say, a whole grain bread or crackers or something like that. These are a little bit shorter. The galacto ones, as it says there, come from milk. The xylo are from corn. And the fructooligosaccharides come from a number of ones. Chicory is probably the most commonly used one, but you actually get some of these in fruits and other kind of starchy vegetables and stuff as well. These are those favorite foods for your probiotics, not just the ones that are in the product, but also the ones that are in your gut. So we've kind of picked out some of the ones that have the best research again in feeding the healthy bacteria within your gut. In particular, the xylo-oligosaccharides have some really good research showing that they stimulate the growth of bifidobacteria. And that's probably one of the largest groups of bacteria within the gut. And so having that in there supports a larger portion of it. The fructo, they've been around a long time, probably the most well-known of the prebiotics. But in terms of efficacy, they're probably one of the lower efficacy prebiotics in there. But they do have some good research and are a number of bacteria that prefer them as a food source. Then, of course, the galacto ones are kind of in the middle between the two of those, offering some pretty good benefits for a number of different bacteria there. And again, the key point in having the prebiotics is it's supporting the friendly bacteria that you already have present in your gut, as well as those that we are adding to it with the PreO product. And we'll talk a little bit more about these in just a sec. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the trifactor. You all are very aware of what it is and what it does. There for the immune system function to kind of complement what you're getting with the prebiotics and probiotics. So those are the prebiotics and probiotics are working with your immune system by helping support the health of the bacteria within your gut. The trifactor is, as we'll talk about next, also helping in that respect. But as you also know, it's helping with immune support throughout the rest of your body, not just localized within the gut. And so it's a very nice complementary addition there. You're getting immune benefits through your microbiome, as well as the immune benefits from the trifactor. So I want to talk a little bit about the research that went into this product. Now, we actually did a number of studies, and I don't think they put a few of the other two in here. We're still trying to get them published, but this is a study that we actually did during the development portion of the product. Now, we'd already identified through the research what we thought were the 5 best bacteria. You see them listed here again. And then we also looked at the research and said, well, what are the best prebiotics? And we already talked about those 3 types that are in the product. And so the next question was, well, how much of each one can we put together to get the best effect in stimulating the growth of our 5 bacteria? And while you don't see it on this particular slide, what we did was went to a researcher who has studied the growth of probiotics for a couple decades now, one of the more published researchers in the area, and said, all right, here's our 5 bugs, here's our 3 prebiotics. We want to try these 6 different ratios of these 3 prebiotics, each with the 5 bacteria individually, and see which combination stimulates the growth of the bacteria the most. And so we went through, he did all that research for us, and we found the ratio of the prebiotics that had the greatest impact on the growth of the bacteria. And so that's the ratio that's actually in the product, is the one that showed the greatest improvement in growth for the bacteria. Now, as we were doing that, we also said, all right, now test the trifactor and see what effect it has on the growth of the bacteria, and put the trifactor in with the prebiotics and see what that does. And so we tested that, and here I've just kind of highlighted the results for the trifactor, but you can see going down to that infantis bacteria on the bottom there, the trifactor by itself stimulated the growth of that bacteria 868%. I think this is some pretty profound findings here. It was a lot bigger than we ever hoped. We kind of figured, because we know that transfer factor itself contains some additional oligosaccharides, the same types of compounds in the prebiotics, we thought, well, it's going to have some effect on it. But we didn't think it would go up that high. But you can see it ranges from 100% all the way up to that 868. So at a minimum, trifactor by itself is doubling the growth rate of these bacteria. And in some cases, you're getting up to almost a 9-fold increase in the growth rate of those bacteria. So that's a pretty significant finding. Not only do you have the stimulatory effect from that custom prebiotic blend, but you're adding to it trifactor, which has its own prebiotic effects. And that's another thing that makes this a really great product. And you're combining the known prebiotics with the transfer factor, which has a prebiotic effect and immune system benefits that we've all known about for a long time. And so I think this is kind of a unique thing to point out when you're talking about this product, is that, yeah, it's got probiotics, it's got prebiotics, but you also have transfer factor, which in and of itself is a prebiotic and immune support stimulant or immune support ingredient. Okay, so let's talk about the beadlets. This is something, and I added the little beadlet picture here to kind of help give a better visual to what this really means. When you get probiotics in the marketplace, they come in all different forms. You can get them in yogurts and fermented foods, get them in powder form and capsule form, tablets, stick packs. They come in just about every delivery you can imagine. And for the most part, about 90% of what you consume in an uncoated probiotic dies before it ever makes it to your large intestine. So if it's a capsule, if it's a tablet, if it's a loose powder inside a stick pack or a tub, whatever, if it's in any kind of a drink or, again, like a yogurt or other kind of fermented thing, they're not going to survive very well. Probiotics have a very specific environment that they like. They grow well when they're in that environment. That is a low oxygen environment. It's a low acid environment. It's what you find in your large intestine. When you introduce probiotics to other environments, and especially if they have a little bit of warmth and a little bit of moisture, they're going to begin to grow, and they're going to realize that, wait a minute, this isn't what I like, and then they'll die. And you lose the efficacy of the probiotic at that point. For most things, that's going to happen either in the mouth or in the stomach as the capsule or tablet dissolves. And so within a couple hours of that happening, they've woken up, they've begun to grow and realize that it's not the right environment, and they die off pretty quickly. So for the most part, if you don't have a protected probiotic, 90% of what you take is lost. And so when we talked about the 1 billion that's in this product, 1 billion is in the marketplace a relatively small number. When you look at the research, if you've got 1 billion, that's enough to do the effect. A lot of the studies show that that's plenty for most benefits associated with consuming probiotics. 30, 60 billion is probably unnecessary, and you're taking excess. But there again, you're taking 60 billion, you're left with 6 billion that actually makes it down to the end of the gut where it does a good job. So you're essentially throwing away 90% of what you're paying for. Now with the preobiotics, we have a 3-layer beadlet. It's actually done in Japan, a company that's been doing this for about 20 years. And they have perfected this beadlet technology in the way that they can take the probiotics, put them in the middle, and you have a 3-layer beadlet that wraps them up. The outermost layer is an acid-resistant layer, so it will survive the stomach and not dissolve at all inside the stomach. And then as it gets into the small intestine, it'll shed that outer layer, and then the center layer kind of goes through its dissolution and dissolving as it goes through the small intestine. So by the time you reach the large intestine, that's when the capsule shell begins to break down and the probiotics are released. And so nearly 100% of all the bacteria that you consume, so that entire 1 billion, is making it to the large intestine. And so you don't have to take huge numbers to get an effect, because you're protecting them as they go through. And not only is it protecting the probiotics during the digestion process, but it's also protecting the probiotics in the storage. And so you get a lot better shelf life by having them wrapped up inside these little beadlets. And one, they're placed inside a foil pack, which blocks out the moisture. And then you have that beadlet coating, which further blocks any moisture that might be present in the powders or might be present in the air that's inside the packet, all those things. The beadlet shell itself is helping protect from that stuff as well. So you get a better shelf life and you get better delivery of the probiotics to the large intestine. So those are two very good distinguishing characteristics for the PreO that a lot of other products in the marketplace just simply don't have. And so you can talk about a lot of big numbers, but when they do that, you just keep in mind and remind them that well, you may start off with 10 billion, but only one of those is making it to where it's going to make an effect and have any kind of benefit on your health. Kind of just 2 slides left on this. These are pretty quick and simple ones. Each stick is its single serving. It is a light lemon flavor. There is a little bit of sugar in this. It is about 100 milligrams per stick, which isn't enough to really do much of anything. Typically, a pinch of salt that you might add to your cooking is usually around 300 milligrams. So this is less than a pinch. It's less than 1 calorie of sugar that's in it. I don't know if that's a concern in India. In the U.S., a lot of people see sugar on the label and they think it's bad for you and whatnot, but it's a very small amount, and it's in there just to give it a little bit of flavor so that it's a pleasant experience. I should mention that the prebiotics are the powder portion of this thing. So you have the beadlets that contain the probiotics. The rest of the product, that powdery stuff, is prebiotic. And we actually had it granulated, so if you look at it, it's kind of a chunky powder of sorts, and that's on purpose. Otherwise, it would be this fine, fluffy, dusty powder, and when you pour that into your mouth, you're going to choke on all that dust. And so we had it granulated, so it's a more pleasant experience. It dissolves quickly in your mouth. You don't have all this dust that's floating around in there that's going to get into your nose or in the back of your throat and that kind of stuff. But that's your prebiotics, are the powder portion of it. And mixed in there is that little bit of sugar. There's a little bit of stevia there, and then the lemon flavor. And that's it. That's all the ingredients in this product. The directions, so it's a little over 3 grams in a stick, which we did some testing, and that seemed to be about the sweet spot. Most people could do 3 grams in a single kind of shot and not have too much, not feel like they were choking or that it was uncomfortable in the mouth. Obviously, children and whatnot, you'll want to do maybe half a stick at a time. And really, it doesn't matter. It's kind of your own personal preference. If you want to do it in 2 or 3 swallows, it's not going to affect the efficacy of the product. Still be fine. But hopefully, most people should be able to do it all at once without any trouble. The key point, these next 2 ones, swallow them whole. Do not chew the beadlets. That 3-layer coating only works if it's left intact. If you chew it and break that coating, you're going to lose 90% of your probiotics before they make it to the lower bowel. So you kind of emphasize with people when they're taking the product, they have to kind of resist the urge to chew the beadlets. Now, a lot of people look at it and whatever reason you have these little kind of crunchy things in your mouth and you just, out of habit, start to chew them. They need to learn not to do that, because that will, in effect, it will decrease the effectiveness of the product by doing that. After you've swallowed it, you can use water or whatever your beverage of choice is, doesn't matter, to help kind of wash it down if you need to. Most people don't have that need, but if you are one of those, doesn't matter. Take whatever beverage you want. You're fine to use it to rinse out your mouth. Yes. We recommend that you take it every day for your first month, and then month 2 and beyond, you would do every other day. And the reason being, it usually takes about a week to 2 weeks for most people to kind of seed your gut. Again, kind of going back to that lawn analogy. But after taking it for those first few weeks, now the bacteria is starting to take hold within your gut. We have you do it a couple weeks longer just to make sure that it is established there. Now, once you've kind of seeded the gut and those bacteria have taken place and started to grow, they'll continue to do that for 2, maybe 3 weeks if you have a healthy diet, if they're getting the prebiotics they want. So just kind of as a side note here, if you take your standard off-the-shelf probiotic and you take it for a few weeks and then stop, at best, it'll be detectable in your bowel for about 2 to maybe 3 weeks after that. At that point, it is gone, right? Because your body has your own microbiome, and that's the stuff that you're feeding, and that's what's growing, and kind of your diet, lifestyle, and genetics, all of those things keep those bacteria going from one month to the next. When you're adding in external probiotics, they usually don't take long-term hold. They can supplement what you already have there and encourage the growth of those. Now, you probably have some of these strains already living within you, and so you're just kind of adding to what you've already got. But in some cases, if you've had a really bad diet, you've been through a course of antibiotics, whatever it might be, these will take hold for a while, but usually they won't become permanent. And so that's why you kind of have to continue to take the probiotics in order to help maintain higher numbers of them within your gut. But so once you've got that established, you've got 2 or 3 weeks that they're going to remain there. And so there really is no reason to continue with daily dosing once you've established that foothold, if you will. And so that's why month 2 and beyond, we then go with every other day, because now you're really just trying to help maintain what you've established. And really, it's going down to those prebiotics. Getting the prebiotics in on a regular basis is going to have the greatest long-term benefit for all of the bacteria within your gut. The probiotics are good, they have nice benefits, but it is somewhat of a temporary effect. The prebiotics are a much broader and much more comprehensive support. And so that's really kind of what the PreO has the advantage of, is you have the probiotics to kind of get things moving in the right direction, and the prebiotics to keep it going in that direction and to help supplement the good that you have and the good that you're adding to it. And so that's kind of why we've done the month 1 as an everyday thing and the month 2 and beyond as an every other day thing. Once you've established that base, now you just need to maintain it going forward. And as I mentioned, for children, really the only difference in the dosing with that is they may not be able to do the entire stick all at once, and so they can take it in smaller portions throughout the day if necessary. And so that kind of wraps up the presentation.